Hi, so welcome Stan Zurkiewicz, CEO of DEKRA. Now, most people, I believe, may recognize the logo of DEKRA at the very least from being on the cap of Michael Schumacher's Formula One team at the time. But most of us in the kind of tech world anyway, know them as one of the global leaders in the space. So I just wanted to welcome you to the chat, Stan. Thank you very much for joining me.
So Jamie, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
It's a real pleasure to get some of your time anyway, sir, so thank you. But I suppose a good place to kind of kick off a chat like this anyway is, can you tell me a little bit about you and your role within DEKRA?
So I was originally born in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
I was educated in the UK and the US. I spent a big part of my working life in Asia. In fact, I was there for 20 years. Since the last 5 years, I'm based here in Stuttgart, where our headquarters are located. I came into the role as a COO and subsequently as a CEO. So I've been a CEO of DEKRA for the past close to 4 years. As you mentioned, I mean, DEKRA is one of the leaders in the tech space. We generate about 4.4 billion euro in revenue, roughly 48,000 people working for us across 60 different countries. So indeed, one of the largest players with particular focus on the automotive industry. So when it comes to automotive tech, we are the undisputed number one.
Love that, by the way. I love the fact that you've managed to get that into the conversation as well, Stan. Thank you. I mean, I think that's seen as well. Again, you know, just referencing Michael Schumacher in particular, he was the number one at the time. You guys were right there as his cap sponsor. You could in every podium.
Absolutely, and you know that it's been a long time ago. I mean, since that sponsorship, I mean that partnership with Michael Schumacher. But indeed, I mean, some people who do not know DEKRA, they would remember us either from the Michael Schumacher sponsorship or the sponsorship of the referees in the German Bundesliga. So that is also something that we've been quite well known for. I think it was quite an interesting sponsorship because we did not sponsor any particular team. We sponsored the referees in order to emphasize the independence and the impartiality. But yeah, I mean, so close association with motorsports and a close association also with football and other sports as well.
Well, that's wonderful. And I like the fact that you obviously didn't pick one team anyway in particular, but also it's quite clever picking referees, I think, because they're in every game of every team.
That's correct. Absolutely true. It worked very well for us.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear anyway. I'm not going to be able to kind of not notice it, I think, now moving forwards anyway. I'll probably see it every single time I see a team going up.
That is a sponsorship that came to an end. So we no longer sponsor the referees in the Bundesliga. I mean, now we are in handball, for example, sponsors for the World Cup of handball, also volleyball, female volleyball. So you will see us also in multiple different sport disciplines.
I definitely will at some point. I'm very sure on that one. So to get into kind of some of the nitty gritties, because there's a lot, you know, that we can discuss, obviously, from DEKRA and the kind of influence that you guys are having, you know, within the tech sphere, but also wider than that in the world and the impact that you guys are actually having. Because again, a lot of people who are watching this, they understand what tech is. A lot of people, I think, may see this and kind of be like, oh, you know, never really kind of come across it. But then when they start seeing brands, they start understanding it. But DEKRA operates across multiple industries and regions around the world. So where are you seeing the biggest shift geographically in, you know, in demand, I suppose, for testing, inspection, certification services?
So I would maybe start by saying that we live in an increasingly fragmented world. That also applies to testing, inspection, certification, the regulations that apply to what we do. Of course, we see some of the geographies becoming more prominent, other maybe less prominent. But I think that one of the biggest shifts that we see at the moment is that the definition of safety continues to evolve. So safety was all about, I would say, physical objects.
Yeah.
But increasingly that definition evolves towards, I would say, the digital world in which we're living. Another important shift that we observe is that we're going from a single approval towards lifetime assurance.
That's an interesting shift, obviously, because how does that work in principle? How can you guarantee something, you know, ultimately for over the course of a lifetime?
So this is one of the big questions with which you know, we are grappling as a testing and certification industry. But I would say as the whole, I would say quality assurance ecosystem if we look at, for example, cybersecurity, or if we look at artificial intelligence in particular, these systems continue to evolve. They continue to learn over time. Cyber threats continue to evolve. It's no longer sufficient to say, hey, an AI system or a large language model is safe today. We have to find a way to assure that it remains safe and trustworthy over its lifetime. So this is one of the big questions that we as an industry begin to grapple with.
I can only imagine that at the moment that's left to greater minds maybe than myself. As I'm sat here, I'm trying to comprehend, well, how would you even start going about doing something like that? But I guess I'm curious then, how important is the relationship with the developers who are looking at, kind of various forms of AI at the moment, and cyber and particular towards cybersecurity as well? How important is the relationship with those guys in order to achieve some of these goals and making sure that everything's safe?
So, I mean, we can answer this question not only from the perspective of AI, but I would say that safety is something that needs to be embedded in a product or system or software from the very start. It's not something that needs to be just checked at the very end. So that's why this relationship with research and development organizations, with developers, is indeed very important. We can accelerate time to market if testing and certification organizations like ourselves are involved early on in the development cycle, as opposed to being involved at the very end to check and validate whether a product or a system is compliant.
Because that, weirdly, this just leads on to a topic that I was quite keen to explore with you today, and that was along the lines of, when it does come to AI and cybersecurity, what do you think of the regulation lag versus the technical acceleration at the moment of some of these areas, AI, cyber, etc.?
So, Jamie, I think that it's always been the case that technology-led regulations. I mean, it's maybe, we can see it more clearly now with the, technological acceleration and the regulation lag, but in fact, it's been always the case. What we also see that there is a push for, I would say, deregulation and regulatory simplification in certain parts of the world.
Yeah.
Which is I would say absolutely necessary. I mean, if we look at Europe, or if you look at Germany, where I am located, I mean, we are unquestionably over-regulated. And the regulatory simplification is something that we want. But we have to be careful not to throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And the narrative that it's frequently out there is that all the regulations are bad. If we deregulate, we will accelerate innovation, we will improve GDP growth rates. But in fact, high safety standards have been the underpinning of our prosperity as societies, particularly here, Western societies. So we have to simplify the regulations. We have to reduce the administrative burden, which is maybe unnecessarily applied on enterprises, while in the same time maintaining high safety standards. And these standards in the digital space, they are only beginning to evolve. I would say in the area of cybersecurity, they are more advanced, and there are certain schemes driven by European Union, of course, by other parts of the world. United States is also quite active there. However, when it comes to AI regulations, this is something that is very much still work in progress, with Europe, with its European AI Act being one of the front runners.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Because that's, again, I would be mulling on, like, how do you not get in the way of something being able to be developed whilst also making sure it's safe? Because creativity is often seen as, freedoms in which to act and to do something. And that's where kind of that inspiration has come from in order to be able to develop into some of these areas. But we are a society that is, governed by regulations, by laws, by rules, by our own ethical feelings as well on certain situations. And therefore, it's crucial to have that safety aspect in particular.
Absolutely. And if you look at historically, harmonized standards have been essential for the innovation to scale. Yeah. We sometimes forget that, but for innovation,
Obviously with the Industrial Revolution as well. I mean, like, we wouldn't have had that had we not also had these bodies working in conjunction to make sure all the workers weren't being killed by exploding engines and things like that at the time, because that's really where the industry kind of started, wasn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. If we look at the origins of many of the safety regulations which kind of underpin the industry today, they have been developed as a result of oftentimes terrible things that have happened. I mean, the pressure vessel is exploding. I mean, cars being unsafe, and so that's why I advocate for kind of more nuanced conversation about the regulations and the recognition that we do need regulations and we do need harmonized standards in order to accelerate innovation and to allow innovation to scale.
Okay. What do you think of? I was reading an article the other day. I genuinely wish I could remember who it's by. It seems pretty bad now of me to bring this up, but I was reading an article the other day that was talking about the tech industry potentially trying to drive its own demand by lobbying, various kind of different regulations. For me, obviously, it's an industry that I operate in, love, support, and understand. But from others on the outside, I think that this can be quite sensationalist, this topic in particular, trying to drive interest and kind of intrigue. But I guess I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that point in particular. What do you think for people kind of saying this is a scenario where we're trying to regulate more things in order to put money in the pockets of the tech companies? I mean, to me, it seems ridiculous, but I'm curious.
So if you look at let's say, the factors that have been most closely correlated with the growth of the testing and certification industry, it has been GDP growth and it has been the growth of global trade. I think that, first of all, the first thing to say is that we don't make regulations, validate objects against regulations and standards. And in fact, we have great interest as testing and certification industry in our economies being dynamic and prosperous, in accelerated economic growth. I think that it's a very, I would say, misplaced way of associating testing and certification industry with overregulation. In fact, we are calling for regulatory simplification. We recognize that, as I said, that Europe, and particularly certain economies within the European Union, they are overregulated. We also recognize that we need to simplify regulation. We have to streamline them. We have to digitalize them. But in the same time, what we advocate is that we need to maintain high safety standards, because high safety standards are indeed the underpinning of the prosperity that we, as the developed societies, enjoy.
I do genuinely agree with your perspective, but it's because I'm fortunate enough to understand the industry as well, to a degree. I wouldn't say anywhere near as well as you. But I remember when I met my partner and I was trying to explain to her what industry I recruited in. Trying to explain the tech industry to an outsider is quite a difficult concept, though, I found.
It is a very difficult concept. Absolutely. It's part of the reason is that we work across so many different industry verticals and we provide such a broad range of services. I think that what we do see we see increasing focus by different testing, inspection, certification organizations. So these organizations perhaps become a little bit easier to understand. But the entire quality infrastructure, and that quality infrastructure consisting, of course, of conformity assessment bodies like ourselves, but certification organizations, accreditation bodies, metrology organization, etc. It's quite a complex ecosystem indeed to explain to someone who has not had the exposure to TIC.
Yeah, I'm glad that it wasn't my first date that was trying to explain this on. Let's just put it that way, because I'm not sure if she'd have been that interested in me going into a level of detail as I talk through. But if obviously we're talking about kind of various different verticals and areas that the industry operates within and covers across it itself, but DEKRA obviously is huge as well across various different areas. But what are you looking at, say, next 5-10 years? What do you see as the biggest investment opportunities for DEKRA in markets, in verticals, whatever you want to call it?
So in our strategy 2030, we have defined 3 main, what we call growth drivers. The first one of them is future of mobility. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we are by far the biggest player in the automotive TIC in the world. and the face of the automotive industry continues to evolve, and it evolves with a speed that we have never seen before. I mean, it's from the combustion engine to electric drive, autonomous vehicles, connected cars, different business models behind the automotive industry. So we see an important role for ourselves, for DEKRA, in ensuring that transformation of mobility happens in a safe way. The second one is digital trust. And digital trust, in our definition, includes cybersecurity, includes artificial intelligence, includes functional safety. We are trying to provide a kind of a comprehensive value, integrated value proposition for not only for the physical aspect of safety, but also for the digital world. And the third growth driver for us is sustainability. Sustainability is one of those terms that we don't talk about as much as we did just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
However, energy transition continues, and we believe it will further accelerate as a result of the energy shock that we are living through today. So already today, the green economy is an enormous market. According to one of the studies by the World Economic Forum, it's already a $5 trillion opportunity, trillion with a T, and it will evolve to 7 trillion by 2030. And in fact, the study has pointed out that it's the second most dynamic investment area after tech. So if you ask me, for one, I would give you 3: future of mobility, digital trust, and sustainability.
Okay. That sustainability piece in particular obviously has huge potential moving forward. From what you were saying as well there, I can understand that the challenges around it, I think, are some of the misconceptions about what sustainability means. Do you mind defining to me, in this kind of conversation, anybody else, what DEKRA understands as sustainability?
So that very good question, Jamie. And of course, it's a very broad concept, and there are different definitions or different ways to understand that concept. For us, we look particularly at 2 areas. One of them, and the primary focus, is energy transition. Yeah. So energy transition within the automotive industry, as I mentioned, from combustion engine towards e-mobility, power transmission and generation. I mean, we are going increasingly towards renewable energy. That energy needs to be generated. It needs to be stored also. I mean, so we're talking about energy storage systems. These could be battery systems. The energy could be stored in the form of hydrogen.
Yeah.
If we look at the energy demand that will be driven by AI, and we started with AI and the data centers, I mean, it's enormous, and we have to make sure that AI revolution, which is currently taking place, happens in a sustainable way from the energy point of view, but also from other natural resources point of view, for example, water consumption being one of those. But there are also other aspects of sustainability, and the sustainability around ESG is another aspect that we are looking at. If we, for example, look at green claims which are being made by companies around the world, as a consumer, you would like to make sure that these claims are reliable, that they are trustworthy. Also, if we look at companies reporting their sustainability performance, you would like to make sure that someone verifies that reporting is indeed reliable and trustworthy. So there are different aspects of sustainability, but we as DEKRA, we look primarily at those 2 buckets, one of them being energy transition, broadly defined energy transition, and the other one being ESG.
Yeah, okay. And I loved what you said. Sorry, I was chuckling as you were talking about obviously verifying that the information is accurate. I won't go down that route too much. I'll move on. But when you're looking at, you mentioned obviously AI and things like that as well. One of the things that I find truly fascinating is that some certain AI systems are being built for various different purposes. And obviously we can see benefits as humankind of what AI will do. But some of them are being deployed into safety critical environments at the moment as well. Do you think companies who are deploying these systems understand the potential risks as well of utilizing AI in something that is potentially going to determine safety of human life?
So maybe allow me to take you to the regulations. And if you look at the European AI Act, the European AI Act is a risk-based framework, and it says that depending on the level of risk, certain applications of AI are not allowed, at least within the European Union. High-risk applications require independent third-party conformity assessment, and then those lower risk applications, they do not require such independent verification. Now you ask me a question whether companies which apply AI in safety critical applications, whether they are aware of the risks. So our experience is that they are increasingly aware. So this awareness continues to grow, continues to evolve, but many companies look at those risks, I would say, in a quite a narrow sense, as a single model or a single product. But AI, of course, it operates in a system. It interacts with software. It interacts with sensors, cybersecurity. So we need to look at AI in a broader ecosystem context, as opposed to in the context of a single product. So in the safety critical environment, I would say the question is not a simple, does AI work today? But the question is whether the system is safe, reliable, and secure over its lifetime.
Okay. And again, that goes back to, what you were kind of talking about at the start as well, when we're discussing that overarching theme of, looking at lifetime support for products ultimately as well, AI being one of them, and making sure those systems are safe. What role should TIC organizations play in cybersecurity? Is this still a world about compliance, certification, or should it more be about continuous assurance and visibility?
So I think that we will continue to see that shift from kind of one-time approval towards continuous assurance. So the shift generally that we see, I would say we see shift from physical safety towards digital trust. We see shift from kind of isolated products towards more ecosystem approach, and from one-time approval towards lifetime assurance. So yes, I mean, particularly in the case of cybersecurity, but even more so in the case of AI, when the threats evolve, when the systems evolve, we have to move much more towards a life cycle approach towards assurance.
Okay. If we zoom out then, 20 years from now, what role do you see DEKRA playing in the future, of humankind?
So last year we had the privilege of celebrating our 100th anniversary.
For what kind of a party did you have for that anyway?
We had a number of parties celebrating with our customers, celebrating with our employees, our colleagues, celebrating with stakeholders across many capitals around the world. So it was a very, very special year for us, and a milestone. And for the past 100 years, what we have been doing, we've been trying to make the world safer.
Yeah, okay.
And this is what we will continue doing for the next 100. So as we look into the future, our role will remain essentially the same. I mean, to make the world safer, to make it more secure, and hopefully also to contribute towards the sustainability of the world. But I would say that if I had the wish about what DEKRA will be in 20 years, I would say global benchmark for trust in technology. Okay. That would be my vision.
Okay. That's a really interesting topic, by the way, as well. And Stan, the wonderful kind of thing here, having these kind of conversations, I've been lucky to meet some of your peers in different organizations as well. And one of the things that always comes through is the passion for the industries in which we support. In some small way, through what I do, I get to participate, though I'm by no means an expert, but it does give a tremendous sense of purpose, to me anyway. That's how I feel about the industry and supporting it in particular. That kind of thing, you've got a very interesting background, obviously, as well, and you've lived in various different areas around the world. What do you see, in the industry that keeps you wanting to be a part of it?
I think that this purpose that you alluded to I think it's central. It's central to me. It's central to our employees. We save lives.
Yeah.
And I think that this purpose resonates with us. It resonates with our colleagues. So I think that's what makes me get out of bed in the morning is this greater purpose and the contribution we can make towards making the world a safer, a better place.
Stan, DEKRA number one, automotive. We've discussed that as we've kind of gone through the security. Where do you see your position globally? If you were going to rank it, where do you see your position globally within cybersecurity?
So, Jamie, great question. And of course, we are very well known for our position within the automotive industry. But I believe in cybersecurity, when it comes to technological depth, when it comes to the breadth of our accreditations, when it comes to customer and project references, we are also already number one. And I will allow me to just give you a few examples. One of them would be the Red Delegated Act.
Yeah.
We are the absolute global leader when it comes to number of devices that have been certified. When it comes to mobile device evaluation, I mean, there is a certification scheme, MDS Cert, also a global leader. If you look at FIPS, for example, 140-3, in Q1 of this year, we were the number one. We were the first organization to issue the CESIP Level 5 evaluation. We were the first organization in the world to issue the EUCC, EU Common Criteria certificate under EU Common Criteria certification scheme. And we have recently become the first certification body to be accredited under the European AI Act for the AI biometric system. So I think that gives you an impression of the position that we have within cybersecurity. And I think that it's fair to say that we are the leader, if not one of the leaders, if not the leader in this space.
I feel like I should have maybe checked that out before I jumped on the conversation with you now, Stan, because genuinely I had no idea you were that prevalent. I knew you were in the space, I just had no idea you were that prevalent with that many kind of accolades. Number one. I suppose it's hard to argue with at this moment. But yeah, thank you very much for running through that with me.